What is up, Hammerheads? Welcome back to the Forge. Today, we're making a fire steel. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so I'm starting out with a piece of 5160 spring steel, and all I did was flatten it out a little bit. I want to say it was ½ inch round. Let me double check that. Yeah. It started out as ½ inch round. Alright guys, I'm going to go half on, half off. Alright guys, we're drawing out our handle. That's where we're at. Now we're going to draw it out to about right here, because when we loop back, you need enough material for your hand to go in. Okay guys, I don't know if you can see or not. Let me grab my pointer. Look for quilting. Like right in this area is a small quilt, but we'll be able to hammer it out. Also, pay attention. This piece right here can turn into a cold shut. So we'll hammer everything out, but before we bend it, we'll actually sand that piece off. Pay attention to where you're hammering at, guys, so you don't make multiple dip downs. It bounced on me once and I accidentally hit in the wrong spot right here. All this can be fixed, but you don't want to end up with a bunch of cold shuts through your metal because you kept letting your material bounce around. Guys, I'm just rounding up the corners here. Getting everything cleaned up for the handle. Now you can see right here, guys. Let's see if I can get in here and fill this up real fast. You can see right there, guys, that little cold shut that's trying to come form on me. So all I'm going to do is when I anneal this here in a minute, I'll take the sander and clean all of that up and clean this section up too. But now I'm going to take it and flip it around, grab my other tongs, my smaller pair, whatever I did with the smaller pair. There they are. Have a little bit more narrow pair of tongs. And now we're going to work on flattening this area here, because you want this section, I'm going to draw it out a little bit and thin it a little bit, but you want it as flat as you can possibly get it, okay guys? Be mindful of the quilting, alright guys? Got a little cold on us. I'm doing flat blows here, guys. I'm not making this into a knife. See how I still have a little bit of thickness? So I'm gonna draw it out just a hair more and then work on making it just a little bit wider, okay? Looking for something about like that, guys. Get your top as flat as you can possibly get it. You're gonna have to sand it anyways, but get it as flat as possible so you're not having to do as much work. We can still see that little bit of a crack right there, guys. I don't know if you can pick it up on camera or not. I'll put my hand behind it. But there's still a tiny crack showing where that cold shut is. So you sand it till that's not there anymore. It looks like you're taking away a ton of material, but you're really not. And don't forget to cool your material while you're doing this. When it starts getting warm in your hand, guys, make sure you cool it down. If you cool it down and it's too hot, it'll crack it. Looks like we almost got it out right there, guys. Now I'll go back in and do a little bit of hammer texturing in here just to make it look a little nicer. I don't like them when they're perfectly rounded and smooth like that. It makes it feel store-bought. Cool it down. Now, we're gonna come in, trying to get where you can see this too, guys. And we're just gonna start flattening. You can do this with an angle grinder also. Actually, let me show you that with a flapper disc, guys. You can do all this work, guys, with a file, or if you have an angle grinder with a flapper disc on it. Just be careful if you're using a grinding disc, because you can take out too much material or get it too hot. I like using a flapper because it's a little bit easier to control, or a sanding disc that you put on a grinder. Take your time with this, guys. It's not a race. But get it as smooth as you possibly can. It goes that fast, all right, guys? All right, guys, I'm just hammer texturing out where we sanded that. Now, go over the end of your anvil, make your finial. Now, with high carbon steel, when you're going to make this finial, if it cools down to where we're at right now, you might as well heat it back up. It will not bend good and it looks weird. So, going back to the fire. Alright guys, just going over the horn of the anvil. I'm hammering, let me get you over here close. I am hammering here, not hammering here. I want to make this corner as tight as I possibly can. And then I bring it around over on itself, okay guys? Because I want to make enough space in this section of the handle where it loops over that I'm able to get my hand in there. Okay guys, I'm coming around to this side. Still hitting up here close. Then I bring the handle around like that right there. Okay? Don't hammer back here when you're bringing it around. Keep everything close to up here at the top of your striker. Now, gonna make sure everything's flat. Flip it over. Make sure everything's flat. I'm gonna go throw my touch mark in it, guys. And then we're gonna do our quench. As you can see, guys, like with knives and with the knife and the chisel quench, I'm not leaving it in one spot. I'm not pulling it out to do a flash or anything like that. I'm moving the material around so bubbles don't form around it and it gets a consistent quench, okay? And I keep it in there till it's cool. Sorry if all y'all seen was the side of my head. There it is. I'm gonna dry it off and then we're gonna go into the flattening, the cleaning up process and getting it the rest of the way flattened out. Okay guys, this is critical. While you're cleaning this up, do not let it overheat. Keep you some water close by to keep it quenching, okay? Or cooling down, it's not really a quench. Take a second, look at it. You can see that it's not completely cleaned up yet. You can't have any divots or anything in it, guys, or it will not strike right. All I'm doing here, guys, is just rounding out these corners so they're not as sharp. And you'll get a little bit better strike. I've found anyways. It may just be the way I strike, but I like the look of it too. So there you go, guys. Good and smooth. All right, guys, let's get real for a minute and talk about what we learned today. I know I've got light coming in weird from the back. I don't know why. It's cloudy. Kind of gives me this like majestic feel. So I thought that was kind of funny. I've got all this light around. Let's get real for a minute and talk about what we learned today. So we made a fire steel, and it throws sparks really well, guys. And it's not even primed yet. I was looking at my phone to make sure it was sparks were picking up. And the more you use your fire steel, the more sparks it will throw. You got to get the inside primed. Remember, guys, and I said this in the last video, but I'm going to emphasize it again in this one. Your stone is not what's throwing the sparks. The stone is removing microscopic pieces of steel from your fire steel, and that's what's combusting in the air. I don't know the science behind it. I just know the basics. So as you're striking, remember, it's not coming from this, it's coming from here. So that's the reason why you want it to be as flat as you can possibly get it, because when you're striking, you don't want it bumping out on you. You want it to be just one smooth strike all the way down. Okay, guys? I don't know if I can do this close enough to get good sparks going anyways. But you want it to be as smooth as possible. And again, and I said this in the last video, but I'm going to, again, say it probably one or two more times. You will have to get this primed. The more you strike with it, the more it's going to produce sparks, because you've got to get those grooves made for your stone to grab into and pull those pieces out. If you find that your stone is not sparking and you're getting very deep cuts into your fire steel, do a file test on it. If it skates across like glass, you're hard enough. You just got to keep working at it. And a lot of it's technique. If it cuts into it, you did not harden your metal, and you need to do a spark test on it. Refer back to the last video where I'm talking about different metals. But get a grinder, angle grinder, sander, anything, and look at your sparks. If the sparks are coming off and it's not exploding like a sparkler, it's not high carbon steel. That's why I like using, if I don't know, if I'm at a scrap yard or somewheres and I don't know what steel to grab, I grab things that are familiar. A cool spring is a very good piece of material to have to make fire steels out of. We've made knives out of them. We've made chisels out of them. This right here needs to be in your blacksmith toolbox at all times. Keep multiple of these around. Cut off what you need. I always anneal my pieces before I hammer them, okay? Unless it's brand new stock, like I have that I made this out of, I always anneal it because you don't know the pressure it went underneath it. If you're using a file, I would grind down all of your edges and some of your sides to where you're bare metal and there are no more ribs for cut. Where, you know, it was the cutting edge of it. Every time I do a video, something flies over being loud. Anyways, and then when you do your quench, guys, be very careful with the file because they are prone to crack. I would normalize it a couple times, heat it up to critical heat, put it in some wood ash, some sand, something, and let it anneal very slowly before you go into your final quench, especially with a file. The springs are a little more forgiving, but a file is not. But guys, let's talk quench for a second since I was talking on that. Remember, come out of the fire, test with a magnet. If it does not stick to the magnet, go back into the fire. Leave it in there for about 10 seconds. I say about. Just all you're doing is bringing everything back up to critical heat. then go directly into your oil. If it is very cold where you're at, I warm up my oil most all through the winter, okay? So what I do is I have a piece of steel and I heat it up and then I put it in the oil and move it around to get the oil warmed up. If you're quenching in water, and I have been very successful quenching fire steels in water that are made out of spring, be very careful. I don't quench in water anymore because if I made 10 fire steels, about 7 of them would crack. Now, is that saying that you can't and be very successful all the time with it? Yes, you could. I just learned that it was not good for me. I made a lot of steels and was very blessed by God that they didn't break as often as they should have. Now, with that being said, and a trick that you might want to use and try is if you are quenching in water because that's all that you have, heat your water up. Don't bring it to a boil, but heat your water up to, I don't know, like 150 degrees or as hot as you can get it to give yourself the best part of success. And I still don't know if that'll work or not, but in theory, it might, because you don't want it to, the water quench is such a harsh quench because it cools the material down so fast. So slowing that down a little bit might help you out. I don't know. But I'm throwing that out there just in case you try it. If it does crack, it does not mean that your steel is garbage. If it cracks down the center, and I've had that generally happen a lot of times, it still will kind of throw sparks, but because of that void, it kind of throws things off. You might be able to grind it down into it to where you get past that, but everyone that I've played around with to see if I could fix it, they were just too far gone. Now, the fire steel that I use for all of my demos is made out of a file that I made 15 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. I mean, I've been making flint and steel for a very long time. It was one of my first ones, and it cracked here in the handle, but it's still very sturdy. So that's what I use it for all of my demos. But I'll never sell one that's cracked. You do not have to put this little scraper end on yours. I do it because I send ferro rods in all of my fire kits. Trying to make sure I've talked about everything, guys. When you're sanding, make sure, guys, that you go one direction. I found the most success this way. Straight up and down. And when you start feeling it get warm in the steel, cool it down. You're not quenching, remember. You're just cooling it down so you can handle it. You don't want to pull a temper into this. And I've never tempered these because I never seen the need to. If you temper one and it works out well, let me know in the comments. It's just something I've never done. But other than that, guys, keep the face as flat as possible. Don't forget you got to prime it. But other than that, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. God bless. Keep hammering.